Hello, this is Dan Brook again, a retired clergy and academic from Hudson, Wisconsin now. And we have our next in a series of conversations with clergy. You know, the role of the church in the community and in our culture is a significant one. The role of a priest or pastor is probably the most easily identified social role in our culture. Almost everybody has an idea of what a priest or a pastor is supposed to do. And so we highly esteem and regard our professional clergy and are happy to continue to introduce some of them to you. It's really my great pleasure to introduce today a fairly new priest at St. Patrick's Parish in Hudson, Wisconsin, Father John Gerritts. He's a native Wisconsinite, likes to fish and do all sorts of things like that, but he has a breadth and depth of experience and knowledge that I think you will enjoy meeting. So my pleasure in introducing Father John Gerritts.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
We're glad you're here. Something interesting happened to me today that I'd like to just get a comment from you about. I was walking up from downtown, very hot day today. For those of you who are watching it, we're finally almost at summer and it's a 85 high humidity kind of a day. And I was walking up Vine Street, if you're familiar with Hudson, and I heard footsteps behind me. And about the time I got to where I was going to turn off to where we live, I heard this gentle voice saying, "Sir." And I looked back, and to my surprise, I saw something we rarely see anymore. And that is a fully garbed nun.
Sure.
And her concern was how much further it would be to St. Patrick's Parish. But in the course of the conversation, it was evident that she was not a native of the USA. Actually, it turns out she came from Poland, and from a very lovely area in Poland called Zakopane.
Sure.
And she works for the Missionary Sisters of St. Peter Claver and was here for a retreat at the Carmelite Monastery.
Yes.
And so my question is, do you have, well, there are a couple of questions. Let's start with the most important.
Okay.
The missionary enterprise of the Roman Catholic Church.
Sure.
The history is long and wonderful. That part of your ministry in the Roman Church, is it increasing, decreasing? And I'm going to attach another part of it to that question, and that is that Pope Francis I
Sure.
seems to have a special heart for it. Where do you think your local parish and the international church is going with regard to missionary enterprises these days?
Sure. Well, the missionary activity of the church does have a long history, really back to our origins, as we look at people like St. Paul, who were the great missionaries. From time to time, there have been these sort of explosions of missionary activity. We think of the period of time with some of the great missionaries, especially the Jesuit missionaries, like St. Francis Xavier and others, who, under great hardship, traveled incredible distances and to lands that were oftentimes foreign to them, and sometimes to really very hostile environments as well. And so the missionary activity, though today, on the local level, we do have a sister parish relationship with a parish in Guatemala. And this past year we sent two groups of people, 2 different times, to Guatemala to be of assistance to the parish there. One of the big things that we are involved there is helping them medically. So oftentimes in the team that we send may include a doctor, a nurse. This year for the first time included a physical therapist. But it's more than just reaching out in a medical sense. Of course, it's about helping them understand more about our culture as we learn about their culture. It's about sharing our faith with each other. And oftentimes when we think of sending missionaries, we often think of what we do for them. But it's really much more what they do for us. Our associate pastor, Father Patrick, happened to go with one of the groups this year and he was able to celebrate First Holy Communion with the children in the village there. And as he was able to bring that story back to our community of the children receiving Eucharist for the very first time, very inspiring for us. So it wasn't just what we did for them, but very much the stories of faith that are brought back to our parish as well. As far as internationally or universally as the Catholic Church, the missionary zeal is really as strong as ever. This year we're celebrating in the Catholic Church what we call a Year of Faith, and really taking on what Pope John Paul II described as a new evangelization, to evangelize all peoples, ourselves, as well as taking the message of Jesus to people who might be hearing it for the very first time. So communities of religious are still very much engaged in the missionary work of the Church, spreading the message of Jesus to people who are hearing it for the very first time, but also taking the message of Jesus back to people who have heard it previous, but really need to be reinvigorated, reignited with their faith, re-evangelized.
You know, your obvious passion for it comes through. Having been born in Wisconsin, in the Merrill area, I think.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
How did you, the people don't know, so let me short circuit this a little bit. You went to study for a number of years in Rome.
Sure.
When you were a country boy from Wisconsin, how did you get to Rome to continue with your studies? Mm-hmm. How did you feel when you were first dumped in Rome? Mm-hmm. And how has it, if in any way, expanded your worldview so that the obvious love you have for mission work comes through?
Sure. Well, graduating from high school, first it was a big step for me to go to St. Paul, where I attended the University of St. Thomas, or then the College of St. Thomas. That was an eye-opener for me to go from a small community. All of a sudden now I'm in St. Paul, Minnesota, where there's cars and there's no cows and things like that. But great experience there, and was presented with the opportunity to consider furthering my studies in Rome, and so took advantage of that opportunity. And people ask, well, what was the advantage of going to Rome? Why would you go there? The thing that Rome provided me was an appreciation for the universal church, that the church for us as Catholics is so much more than just our local parish, whether it's in a small town or in a larger city, that the church is so much more, that the faith that we're celebrating on Sunday, St. Patrick's, is the same faith that's being celebrated throughout the world. And so the real advantage that I had in studying in Rome was the opportunity to study with students from every corner of the world, and to be able to learn about their culture, to learn about their lives, but then also to realize that the faith that we are learning about is the very same faith, whether we're going back to northern Wisconsin, or whether we're going back to India or to a place in Africa or South America, that it's the very same faith. And for us as Catholics, then to realize that it means that it's not only the same faith that we profess, but like on Sunday we're reading the same scripture readings. We may be reading them in very different languages, languages that we don't understand, but it's the same passage from the Bible. Many of the prayers are the same prayer that we are offering.
Now, when you first, so after you graduated from St. Thomas, you went directly to Rome?
Correct.
And all of your seminary training basically was in Rome?
4 years of training that comes after college. Mm-hmm. We may call it the major seminary, mm-hmm. or graduate studies. Mm-hmm. Those 4 years of formation and study mm-hmm. were entirely in Rome. Yes.
Did you have an internship in the process of that 4 years?
Sure.
And where did you serve that, or how?
A couple of different things happened during those 4 years. One, during the course of our studies, are also engaged in some sort of apostolic or service opportunities. So a couple of opportunities that I had were working in places like, say, soup kitchens that were run by the Order of Sisters that were founded by now Blessed Mother Teresa of Calcutta, to teach religion in some international schools there that are located in Rome. And that's one of the unique things about Rome, is that of a major metropolitan area, it is a very international community. There are a number of corporations that have offices there that bring people in from all over the world. There is certainly, Rome is kind of a city where there's a lot of immigrants that live there. A lot of diplomatic activity goes on there, along with all of the church activity. And so there are a number of international schools there that may use Italian or English as their official language. Oftentimes the children in those schools, though, will speak not only 2, sometimes 3 and 4 languages, which is really amazing. So I had opportunities to teach religion in those schools, had the opportunity to also go down to Naples and to serve at a parish that was on a NATO base there, where Americans who are deployed with NATO live, and so had the opportunity to get parish experience there. But then also during the summers, 2 of the summers came back here to the United States, served in parishes in northern Wisconsin during the 3 or 4 months during the summer. And then one summer had the opportunity to go to Liberia in Western Africa and spend about 6 months there to work in a couple of parish settings there, to work in a vocational school setting run by the Salesians of Don Bosco, another religious community, and then to also spend some time working in a leprosy colony there run by an order of sisters from Ireland. So kind of a variety, not just the standard parish experiences, had a number of different experiences that way.
You know, often when somebody lives in another culture for a period of time, it's fairly hard to adjust when you come back to your own culture. And you often get infected with a bug that keeps you wanting to travel. How have you managed to not let that bug get a hold of you in the 22 years you've been back in parish ministry in Wisconsin?
Sure. I think I almost had the opposite experience. I was ready to come home. And I loved Rome. I loved the experience. But maybe part was the excitement to come back to Rome, to be or come back to the United States to be close to family, to be back in a culture that I was familiar with, that I grew up in. Part of it was probably also the excitement, though, to come back and to serve, to take what I had been preparing for, learning about, studying about, and to be able to apply that now in a parish setting. Because I went to Rome with that idea. I would come back to serve in a parish, was able to study and to hopefully prepare myself for that. And so I had excitement, I think, to come back, and finally school was finished and formation was finished. Now I could do what I had been preparing so long to do.
So did your mother worry about you?
As a good mother, probably every day.
Probably. And your father too, probably.
Sure.
Are your parents still alive?
No, both of my parents have died. So my mother died about 16, 17 years ago. My father died about 4 or 5 years ago.
And do you have siblings?
I do. I have an older brother and an older sister, a brother who lives just south of Eau Claire, and a sister who lives out in Virginia outside of the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area.
So for people like me, I would always ask a question like, do they treat you like a priest or like a brother?
They treat me like a brother ultimately. So I think they are excited about the vocation that I've chosen. I think that there's a little bit of pride in the family. But when we get together, I have to wash the dishes too, and When my brother and I go fishing, and one time I knocked a walleye off his line as I tried to net it, he gets just as mad at me as any brother would.
That's good to hear. I want to back up just a little bit. This wonderful nun that I met coincidentally today, who is in full sort of traditional garb. Are there many groups of professional church women who still wear the old traditional garb like that?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. There's, and that is a decision that communities make individually. So generally, each community will decide what their proper attire would be. Some communities have chosen to dress in a more traditional style, like what you saw. Others have chosen to dress in a more contemporary style. Much of that might be related to the activity or the charism that their community is involved in. But it does seem that there is a bit of a trend that the young women who are going into religious life are really gravitating to those communities that do dress in a more traditional manner, because it seems that those communities oftentimes are living out their mission well. Not that the other communities aren't, but I think that the young women that are going into religious life in particular are looking for that sense of identity, that sense of really belonging, that I'm able to identify with them, I belong to them, I know what our mission, our ministry is going to be about. And so there actually seems to be a return and a growth in that area.
Generally speaking, in the USA, the Roman Catholic Church in the USA, has it gotten caught up very much in this liberal conservative continuum? Is there a lot of variation between parishes? And if so, now this may be dangerous, so you can just say, Dan Brook, it's none of your business. Where would you, if there is such a continuum, put St. Patrick's and a person like you?
Sure. I think actually I'm going to turn to our associate, who is young, but actually I think really said it wisely. He said, my hope is that we're not a destination parish. And I really have to credit him with that wisdom, that I would hope that people see us as being a Catholic parish, a Roman Catholic parish. That anyone who is ascribing to the Catholic faith would feel comfortable there. That we might not be as traditional as some congregations are, may not be as liberal as other congregations are, but that people would see that the Catholic faith is being lived out here, that the worship is something that I'm familiar with. I might not like every single song that we sing, but I do sense that this is a Catholic community. This is a Catholic parish. And that's the type of priest that I really try to be, that people realize that I am a Catholic priest. I'm guessing that there are certainly some that would say, well, gee, we wish you would be more liberal. Others would say, well, you need to be more conservative, more traditional. But I would hope that they see in me a Catholic priest, that I'm not going to judge them, and that I'm not going to say, well, gee, I can't minister to you because you're too traditional or you're too liberal, that I would be able to minister to all who come to our parish seeking to live out their faith within our parish, and that that they would say, this is a Catholic parish. And it's not that it's not a destination type parish, that it's something that I'm looking for. I would also hope that we can serve the Hudson community. And that's really something that from the very beginning that I've really hoped and have prayed that that we can be recognized as the Catholic parish for people living here in Hudson, that we can be the Catholic community.
What are the other closest parishes? River Falls, Somerset?
Somerset, New Richmond, and then going across to Stillwater, to St. Francis, going down towards Lake Elmo, and then St. Ambrose over in Woodbury.
Are people sort of expected to attend their local parish, or let's say there's somebody over in Stillwater who likes the ministry that you provide at St. Patrick's better than theirs? They can come be a member, or don't you have to be members, or how do you handle all this sort of stuff?
There was a time, if we go back into the 1950s, where there was a very strong geographical outline that if you lived within the confines of this neighborhood, this area, that is the parish that you went to, and you were definitely expected to that. People do move about even for work. We know that a lot of people in Hudson go over to the Twin Cities for work, and people from there may come over this way to eat at one of the great restaurants in Hudson, things like that. So it's probably not surprising that it's the same when it comes to faith, that people will drive to go to a church that maybe does offer some activity or practices more in line with them. I guess what I would hope, though, is that they would always give their local community, their local parish, first a real good look and a real good try, and before they would start to, and that goes either way. If it's people coming to us or people from Hudson going elsewhere, I would always hope that first they gave their parish a real good try, and would hopefully first look to their local parish as being their home. If for some reason things just are not right, then certainly to look elsewhere.
What is the approximate size of the worshiping community at St. Patrick's?
We have about between 1,700 to 1,800 families, and or households, and a household could be anything from a single person to a family with 5, 6, 7, 8 children or more. So but we count by households generally in the Catholic Church.
So it's a significant size, really, even for the region. It's a good-sized parish.
For northern Wisconsin, it would be definitely on the larger side. Going over into the Twin Cities area, especially to some of the suburbs, there are certainly parishes there that are in the 3,000 to 5,000 household range. So it probably would be considered medium size for over there.
When you first saw the structure, what did you think of the worship space that your predecessors have given to you?
Sure. Interestingly, the priest who was my pastor growing up, Father Peter Sklezinski, he was my pastor when I was a young boy in Merrill, moved to Hudson when I was in high school, and was the pastor at the time of the building of the church. And so then going to school in St. Paul, had the opportunity to stop and to visit him when the construction began. So I actually remember seeing the first construction starting to happen, seeing the woodwork starting to go up, things like that. So I've been fairly familiar with the structure of the church, the space and things like that for a long time. It did take a little bit of getting used to. The parish that I came from, I'd been in Rhinelander, Wisconsin for about 16 years there. It was pretty much kind of a traditional style. Churches were built in the late 50s, so they were not real ornamental and such, but they were that kind of the pews and everybody looking forward. So it did take a little bit of getting used to having people out on the two sides and having to remember that I just don't look forward, just can't look to my right or to my left. Got to really make sure that I'm hopefully giving the sense of everybody that some acknowledgement that I recognize you, I see you're here. So it did take a little bit of getting used to.
Do you like it now?
I do, because it's a great distance from one corner to the other, but at the same time, from where I'm in the sanctuary to where everyone is sitting, that's not such a significant distance as it was, say, in Rhinelander. Myself being in the front in the sanctuary to that back pew or even the choir area, it was a long way back there.
Yeah.
Whereas it is there is, and I find for as big of a space as it is, we seat about 1,000 people. There is a great deal of warmth to the space. Last night I had a mass, and there were maybe 25, 30 people. Thankfully, everyone was sort of sitting in the center, but it didn't feel that people were lost in the space. Sometimes, especially if you go to a large cathedral and you have just a few people, you almost get that sense of being lost. And I don't feel that in St. Patrick's, as large of the space as it is, that even with smaller groups, that there is still a sense of warmth there.
You know, sociologists talk about the personality of any institution finally residing in the personality of its leader. Assuming for a moment that may be true, how would you define the personality of St. Patrick's Parish?
Well, the personality of St. Patrick's Parish. Well, you know, what I have found is that St. Patrick's Parish has a great deal of warmth to it. That there are that people are fiercely loyal to the parish, and that they love their parish, and that there is a good deal of pride about the activity that we're about. That's probably the first thing that I noticed is just that loyalty to the parish, and then the warmth. That coming in, especially through the main doors on Sunday, that there are always people there greeting. And, you know, the one I love the most, 7 a.m. Mass, you know, there are people there already by 6:15 in the morning. Wow. That they're ready to be there for Sunday, for Sunday Mass. And so I really have come to appreciate that. And then just the prayerfulness of the people. We have a small chapel that is open from about 7 o'clock in the morning till most days 10 o'clock at night. And there is always someone there in prayer. 1, 2, sometimes you go 3, 4 people are there in prayer. And but for the entire day, there are people that stop. Sometimes we do have people that are scheduled to come in, so that there is always somebody there in prayer. But frequently people just stop by, and if I'm walking out in the entryway, the lobby, I see people coming in or going out. They just were in the neighborhood. They were driving by. Talked to a fellow from New Richmond. He said, well, whenever I'm going through and going over to the cities, I like to stop by for a few minutes to pray in the chapel there.
That's wonderful.
And that amidst all of our busyness and you know, all of the, you know, the studies reports, you know, that people maybe pray less than they previously did, things like that, they're really, you know, there are people who really do love to pray and take the time out of their day to come and to sit quietly in the presence of our Lord.
That's good. And it's a gentle and quiet and peaceful space for sure.
Sure.
Someone once said the role of a priest is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. I'm sure you've heard of that. Assuming there's some truth to that, how do you intend to afflict the comfortable in the years ahead?
Sure. Well, I would certainly hope that you know, we are not the same congregation, you know, a year from now or 2 years from now that we are today. And I don't know how the Spirit is going to lead us, but I'm certainly not the same person that I was, you know, 3 or 4 years ago, you know, even probably a year ago. And so I'm hoping that I'm always growing stronger in my faith. You know, as you know, we've both have had opportunity to spend a substantial amount of time studying about our faith, but we all still get to learn more about our faith. Just that encounter that you spoke about at the beginning of the show today, that you had, I'm sure was an opportunity for you to grow in your faith just a little bit.
Yeah.
I would hope that, until the day I die, that I have those opportunities. And I would hope that that would be the same for St. Patrick's Parish, is that we continue to have the opportunities to grow in our faith. And so simply in that manner, I would hope that we are afflicting the comfortable, that, I can never be quite, too comfortable in my faith, because I don't know what the Spirit's going to do to challenge me, to move me, to give me some knowledge I didn't have previous, to have that insight, that little kernel of wisdom that I didn't have before. But then maybe going back to even the beginning of the show, that I would hope that one of the areas that we do grow is that we become even stronger in our zeal for missionary activity, whether it's continuing to build that relationship with a sister parish, whether it's supporting some of the universal initiatives that as a church that we might have with organizations like, say, a Catholic Relief Services or Catholic Extension Society, things like that, that we continue to become aware of the missionary activities of the church, continue to grow in our support, and certainly, too, to continue to grow in how we support some of the local initiatives, to reach out to help people who are in need, to realize that there are many people just here in our local community who struggle. And it may be financial, but it may be struggling in other ways, whether it's loneliness, struggling to find God in their life, struggling with mental illnesses, that we can continue to, with the entire Hudson community, figure out how God might be calling us to serve people in need, people who are grieving in our community, and that we might be able to reach out and to meet those challenges and to say, wow, I didn't know that 3 years ago God would be calling me to, to be working at the food pantry, or to be working with this organization or agency, or to be reaching out to people in this way. And I would have never guessed that God was calling me, but wow.
Well, here's a silly question. So I worship in your parish from time to time. I love the worship space. But the Catholic Church has such a long tradition of beautiful pipe organs and gorgeous music, and you have such a nice acoustical environment there. Do you ever foresee adding an organ of some substance to it, or is it just something that your parish, like many, just doesn't have a lot of interest in?
Sure. Well, one of the challenges today is finding organists. We do have 2 people in our congregation who do play organ, and who, while it might not be what is the instrument used all of the time, there are occasions when we do make use of the organ. We don't have the pipe organ of maybe the St. Paul Cathedral. I don't know if that's in our future or not, but music is certainly important in worship, and I love good music, and I love a variety of music. There are times when I love the contemporary music. We're blessed to have a visit by a very popular contemporary Catholic musician by the name of Stefan Grazzano, and I love his music and enjoyed the music he was able to share with us. But then there are times too that I really do enjoy, enjoy some of the traditional music. In the Catholic Church, the Latin is a very important role, and enjoy some of the Latin hymns. Was just at a funeral for a priest of our diocese who died, and we have a tradition at the end of the funeral, as the casket is taken out of the church, there is a Latin hymn that we sing as priests. to give honor to the Blessed Virgin Mary, to give honor to that priest who has served God. And, there's something about, hearing the voices of my brother priests singing that hymn that, it just tells you that God is present. I guess that what I really look for is that, we continue to appreciate the composers and the music that's being composed new, but that we also have a reverence for the music that is a part of our tradition. And there are some composers that are sort of blending the two, which I really love, where they're taking maybe a refrain from a traditional hymn and putting it with verses that are more contemporary and melding the two together, or taking some of the Latin hymns and giving them maybe a more contemporary beat or rhythm to them that they really do have a very great special place, I guess, that I enjoy.
Yeah, it's really one of the gifts of your church, isn't it? That you operate in virtually all of the cultures, and thus have given rise to composers within your tradition who have the ability to blend so many different mediums and approaches to music, and virtually all the really quality contemporary church music has risen out of the Roman Catholic Church, and a gift to the church throughout the world. So it's a wonderful blessing. Now, I have been harassing you. Is there anything before our time just flies? I just looked and here
wow.
Here we are. We've gone on for quite a bit. Anything I didn't ask that you would really like the listening audience to know about you, the church of which you are a part, the parish, before we draw it to a close?
I think, Dan, I love the Hudson community. I'm really, I've not lived except for in St. Paul for 4 years of college, haven't lived in this part of Wisconsin. I am kind of a Wisconsin person through and through, but I'm enjoying exploring this part of the state. I do like to do some biking, and so get on my bicycle, and I'm able to explore the countryside some. And I'm really enjoying the Hudson community here, this part of Wisconsin. I'm really enjoying St. Patrick Parish, and it is a great community, and I'm enjoying meeting the people. Got to have lunch today with a couple who are celebrating 60 years of marriage today, and got to have lunch with them and hear their story even more, and just really enjoying St. Patrick Parish, and I hope that the parish is enjoying me as much as I'm enjoying them.
Well, I think we can say with some confidence that you're a value added to this community. A delight to have you here. Very grateful that you are willing to sit and have this little conversation, and we'll look forward to getting to see you more and know you better in the future.
Thank you.
For those of you who have been watching, we are grateful for your presence with us. I know you join us in thanking Father John Gerritts for the time together, and we hope the rest of your day is as good as the first part. Thank you for being with us. Goodbye now. Peace and love.